And we want to start to turn to Ron Glass to lead us through a land acknowledgement. So Ron, over to you.
Greetings, everyone, wherever you may be on this planet. I welcome you here in this time, in this virtual space, and thank you for joining us. I'm Ronald David Glass, and as the elder of the Santa Cruz and Urban Planning team for this gathering, I will be formally opening our circle with a land acknowledgement. The University of California, Santa Cruz occupies an unceded territory of the Ama Mutsun people, whose tribal band chair led a negotiation that resolved on an agreed statement for formal university events that I will read in a moment. The statement emerged from the relations built through collaborative research on and about that land, the Ama Mutsun Relearning Project. But at this moment in this circle, few of us are present on Ama Mutsun territory. For example, I speak to you from my home in Berkeley, California, on the Wekma Ohlone Chochenyo lands. And their struggles continue here as they fight to preserve their sacred shell mound from development. If you don't know on whose ancestral lands you have settled, our Zoom wizard has posted a number you can text and also a website you can check out and you can learn more there. I grew up a settler in the land of the Shawanoki, the Shawnee, at the southern reaches of the Algonquin-speaking peoples. My ancestors arrived there in desperation and hope as they fled pogroms, imprisonment, and orphanhood. My uprooted tumbleweed family got intertwined with the Lenni Lenape, the traditional grandparents of the Shawanoki, who had been driven from the East Coast to Ohio River Valley lands by colonial violence. My tangled roots first grabbed hold on land cleared of Shawanoki and Lenape alike after their continued forced removal to west of the Great Mississippi. And I'm raised up from that slate clay left behind on the etched glacial scrape that holds the Great Lakes. The land acknowledgement recognizes and honors the history and presence of Indigenous peoples and their abiding relationship to their traditional homeland. It helps create awareness of the cultural erasure of Indigenous peoples and the processes of colonization and subjugation that contributed to that erasure and that endure in our institutions and our lives. The land acknowledgement helps us appreciate Indigenous people's sovereignty and ongoing caretaking of the earth. But land acknowledgements bear their ethical weight only when each of us consciously bear our own responsibility and accountability to this earth itself, to the mountains and valleys, plains and coasts, all that slithers and crawls and walks or runs upon the earth, the no legs, the two legs, the four legs, the many legs, all that is finned or scaled and swims in the waters, all that is winged and flies through the air. All these are mud peoples, fabulous mixtures of earth and water, air and fire. Land acknowledgements call us into answerability for our relations with all the other mud peoples, into our obligations to the earth and water that sustain and nourish all, to the air essential for breath, to the fires that fuel transformation. Let us so commit ourselves. Now the land acknowledgement. The land on which people gather at the University of California's Santa Cruz is the unceded territory of the Awaswas-speaking Yupi tribe. The Ama Mutsun tribal band, comprised of the descendants of Indigenous people taken to missions Santa Cruz and San Juan Bautista during Spanish colonization of the Central Coast, is today working hard to restore traditional stewardship practices on these lands and heal from historical trauma. To close, I'll offer these words from Taike Alfred's Indigenous Manifesto. To be wise is to cherish knowledge. To know love is to know peace. Respect is honoring all of creation. Bravery is to face challenges with honesty and integrity. Humility is to know yourself as a sacred part of creation. The truth is to know all these things. I welcome all mud peoples to this gathering of truth, all my relations. Thank you.
And now I'll welcome Anna to lead us through the next part of the agenda. Thank you for that, Ron.
Hi, everybody. I'm Anna Antunes. I am a professor at University of Utah, and I am here with the beautiful folks of Youth Voices. I'll tell about our work in a minute. I am going to tell you a little bit about what's happening today, the issues that we're highlighting, and then the ways in which our meeting is going to go. So this would have been our fourth, our April 2020 would have been our fifth urban conference. And we, urban conferences are often small gatherings, really focused on community, local community development and community work. And we are, like Chris said, working towards our Santa Cruz conference is postponed, but not canceled. We will get there eventually. It's going to happen. But hopefully 2022. And so, yeah, so that will be our conference. Please continue to join us at our live events via Zoom. We're really excited to have a year of conversation and discussion until we get there. My partner, Saya, who is in the other room, and I'm gonna wait until he gets in front of the camera. It has a beautiful spoken word piece for us. Saya and I have worked together for a really long time. Saya was a member of Mestizo Arts and Activism when I was a grad student working with Mestizo. And now we're both mentors in Youth Voices here, and he is a really awesome dude. So he has a beautiful spoken word piece for us here.
All right. Hello, everyone. So thank you, Anna, for the introduction. My name is Sai Langi, and I am from Salt Lake City, Utah. I am from the awesome neighborhood of Glendale. It's over on the west side of Salt Lake City. And yeah, I was born and raised on the west side, raised in this neighborhood. And so for me, I feel like the most impact I can do is working with my own community and working within, within arm's reach of my own neighbors, and then expanding out from there. But yeah, I've got a little poem for y'all today. This speaks more about Youth Voices, who we are, and what we do as a group and as a collective. This one is called Hear Us. The pen is our weapon. The page is our shield. Together we can rise. Together we can build. We are the voices you cannot ignore. Ours is the voices that continually endure. Hear the roars of our ancestors collectively speaking. Listen to the stories of our truth that we're seeking. Our stories are the weapon. Our truth is the shield. Together we'll rise. Together we'll build. Tune into the words that I am emitting. Feel the frequency of vibration so that there will be no forgetting. We are here, here we stand, many languages from different lands, articulating our ideas for all the world to see, expressing ourselves in order to be free. Our expression is our connection, our community we feel. Reaching greater heights, together we heal. Our names are our power, pronounce it correctly. Our story is the reason to speak truth directly. Lived experience in the center, the target is the target we aim for. Youth voices get louder, the future is in store. Our names are the weapon, our voices will wield to bring awareness to our community, and together we'll build. Thank you.
So we will start with our 10-minute presentations, and we go first. Youth voices go first. So you met Saya and you met me. I'm gonna give Jaylani, Omar, and Ahmed a minute to introduce themselves so you can get to know them as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jelani Athman. I've been working with the Youth Voices for 4 years now, and we've just been engaging our youth in community-related changes, what they want to see us in the neighborhood, and most of the work has been done by the students. Ours has just been mentoring them. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to be with you today.
Hello, guys. My name is Ahmed Bana, and I'm a student at Youth Voices. This is my 3rd year in Youth Voices. Youth Voices is a program that we do where we speak and we get comfortable with our people around us, our students, mainly our peers, you know. And sometimes we speak, sometimes we have fun, you know, and that's about it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Omar, and I've been in Youth Voice for 3 years right now. And I don't have anything to say. Everybody said everything in here. So yeah, that's Youth Voice. We just feel safe coming here. So hope you enjoy.
So a lot of the feedback that we got from the website was related to doing work and to engaging young people during these difficult times. We look forward to talking to you all during the breakout room about that and ideas. It's not, we also haven't figured out how to do it. We're here and we are trying, but we, Ahmed and Omar have been guiding us on how to best support them through these difficult times at online learning. Here in Salt Lake, the districts, different districts have different arrangements for schools. So that makes it a little bit harder too, because some people are going to classes, other people are not going to classes. So that makes it a little bit more challenge to make sure that we're working with everybody and making sure that we're serving all of our students. But they're here to tell us what they need from us, and we're here to do it for them, whatever we can. So we look forward to talking to you all about that. I saw from the comments that there was a lot of people who responded who are facing similar challenges, and we look forward to hearing ideas of how you all are doing it too, and share a little bit of the things that we are working here at Youth Voices.
Thank you, Anna, and Youth Voices. Let us recognize. I'm going to pass it to my sister friends, and they are beginning with, I think, Maria Elena Torre.
Good morning. Good morning on the East Coast. Good afternoon, or good morning on the West Coast. Good afternoon on the East Coast. I don't think we have any good evenings, but if you are tuning in from afar, good evening to you. We're honored to be here with you all today to think about what it means to be all in researching for justice. I'm the first Maria Elena you're going to hear from today, a member of the Survivors Justice Project, which is a rapid response, what we're calling ourselves a rapid response participatory research collective. We are actually quite a good size, so we're encouraging you to read our bios rather than use our minutes. And there you will see that we are academics, we are activists, lawyers, social workers. Some of us have spent too many years in prison. Some of us are survivors of violence. All of us, with many overlaps, are passionate and determined to bringing justice to those eligible under the New York State's, eligible rather for resentencing under New York State's Domestic Violence Survivors Justice Act, which you'll hear us refer to as the DVSJA. We're going to give you a sense of our project. so that we can talk about it more in depth during the breakout sessions. And what I hope that you'll hear across our voices is how our work sits at the intersection of carceral and intimate violence, the critical lenses we use around gender, race, and sexuality, how our work is richer for our differences, how it's rooted and led in the knowledge and expertise of those most affected, and how we embrace complexity rather than flattening our narratives. As you listen, you might think about what it means to engage research as an urgent response to injustice, as a call for accountability. To those of us who are academics, to ask ourselves, what is our responsibility at this present moment? And to all of us, what does it mean for us to go all in together? What does it mean across our differences, our relationships to power and vulnerability, to white supremacy and colonization? What does it mean for us as we operate anchored in our commitments to justice, to building, as we just heard, a world, to building structures, to building communities and relationships filled with equity, dignity, respect, joy, and love? So I'm going to ask my colleagues to unmute their mics, and to kick off our chorus of voices is my colleague Anissa Sabor, who will share a little bit about the history and context of the DBSJA in case you didn't get a chance to watch the video. Anissa?
Thank you, Maria. Thank you to the university for having us on this amazing conference. I'm excited and I'm glad to be a part of it. As Maria said, my name is Anissa Sabor. I am a policy advocate who have been advocating for the Domestic Violence Survivors Justice Act bill for many, many years. The DBSJA was designed and crafted by directly impacted women from New York State's Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, along with many members and advocates from New York State, to address the unjust long sentences that survivors of domestic violence were getting. The domestic violence represents a 10-year-long fight with many, many women from the inside and from the outside. And I just wanted to say that I was inspired to look up whose land I live on. And I live on the Munchu, Lenape, Wappinger people's land. And I'm very excited to be a part of this conference. And I will now pass it on to my esteemed colleague, Kate Moculeski.
Thank you, Anissa. And despite Maria telling me to turn on my mic, I had to keep it muted because I'm in a household that has several children remote learning at one time, which you would think might be a quiet enterprise, but is actually anything but that. So hi, everyone. I'm Kate Moculeski. It's really nice to be with you all today. As you may know from the video, this law that Anissa just described was passed just last year in 2019. And our research collective, the Survivors Justice Project Research Collective, came together pretty quickly after the law went into effect as a way to hold the systems where this law was going to live more accountable. We didn't have great faith that the criminal legal system was going to do that on its own, nor did we have great faith that the people that most needed this law, the people that were in prison serving long sentences, people that were facing long sentences at the beginning of a case or a prosecution, would know necessarily how to obtain the relief, that their attorneys would know what was happening or what this law really was meant to do. And so our group formed as a way to promote accountability. We also really wanted to examine the role of lawyers specifically, and by extension, I think academics as gatekeepers to the process. We wanted to make sure that lawyers wouldn't act as the sole gatekeepers determining whose story got told, whose experience was recognized, whose experience was privileged, and doing that in a way that might reinforce the marginalization of people who have experienced violence, abuse, and people who are currently in prison. And so we created different pieces of this project, including creating a database of all of the women who were in custody in New York State prisons at the time the law went into effect that may be eligible to seek sentence reductions. And really we set to work collaboratively with every member of our advisory group, trying to understand that list. deconstruct it. What could we learn from it? What could we glean from it? And how could we make sure that the people on that list weren't just cells in an Excel sheet or a database, but how did we as a group want to connect with them and see this law brought to life? I'm way over my time, so I'm going to turn it over to Judy Clark, but I'm really happy to be here and anxious to talk more about the overlap between our work and yours.
Hi, I'm Judy Clark, speaking from New York and Lenape land. I joined this project less than a year after I had come out of doing 38 years at Bedford Hills Prison. So I saw the evolution and creation of this law from inside, and went through the frustration of people's hopes having to be sustained over all these years. And in my own process of trying to land in a new place and yet be real to where I was coming from. And I think that same dynamic is a lot of what sort of inspires us as a working group. So usually research is done about people in prison by outsiders who have the authority to do it. And we inside are the objects of that research. And we're trying to turn that on its head and say that the folks inside and the folks most directly impacted are the drivers of what we do. And that therefore research is inseparable from action. So the only reason we're researching is to be able to do something to make the changes that we have to make. And so for me, when I looked at that initial list of 400 some odd women, they're the women I just left. And so being able to bring that, particularity into the conversation was a privilege that I really appreciated. And with that, I turn it to my sister, Monica.
Thank you. My name's Monica, and I will talk about an offshoot of our group. And we're developing a resource guide that helps women that are on the inside dealing with the DVSJA so it can be successfully implemented. Because a big piece of this is that the women themselves have to understand and know how to access the law, not just lawyers and judges. They're not the only ones that need to be informed. It's the women. And so as part of the project, we're building out a resource guide to assist them and assist lawyers that will be helping them and to help them understand women and trauma and how that manifests itself in the legal system and how do you deal with all of them things. And with that, I'll pass it on to Melissa.
Thank you, Monica. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa. I'm a social worker. And when COVID shut everything down, our project, we continued our work, and in a lot of ways, we sped up rethinking what it means to do responsive research and the ways we could offer support and maintain connections with women inside. So in the same way that the advisory group, which Judy mentioned, is mostly comprised of women who have experienced incarceration, the way that group is guiding all aspects of our project, we're working to make sure that women who are currently incarcerated are also informing and developing our project and feel ownership of it. And I just want to say, the poem was so beautiful that was read at the start of the program. And there was a line that said, expressing ourselves to be free. And I think we want to make sure that we are doing our part in opening up those avenues as much as we can for the women inside. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Cheryl.
Good afternoon, everyone. And, I just want to start and make sure you understand that our project is rooted in love, in a deep respect for the experiences women have, for their knowledge and wisdom that they hold. These are our friends, these are our sisters, these are our families, and unfortunately, they're still locked up. This is our life work. We are all in. And the borders of our collective are porous, with opening for others to join us, because it is such a huge problem that we need everybody that we can. And we won't stop until she's free. And with that, I will pass it on to my sister, Kathy.
My name is Kathy, Boudin, and I speak as somebody who was incarcerated for 22 years. And what's been amazing about this collective process that we have is that it reproduces in many ways what most people can't see inside of the prison, because it's invisible and it's meant to be invisible. It's meant to isolate us, is the tremendous capacity and potential and vision and abilities that exist in women inside the prison. And so when I think about this project, I think about the projects that I was lucky to be part of with women in the prison, whether it had to do with doing a hearing about why domestic violence led them into prison, and doing that hearing in front of legislators and in front of judges and in front of the news, and talking about what they did and the courage that it took to do that, and the way in which that influenced this legislation. And that was like in 1985 that happened. Or taking on the AIDS epidemic and really developing a community organization that could cope with it. Or taking on being mothers. 75% of us were mothers, and how do we work with all the feelings that we had, and how do we teach classes to each other, and bringing higher education back. And I think that the strength of understanding that people who are most directly impacted have the wisdom and the knowledge and the drive to play a critical role in changing things, and that the knowledge that exists inside a university is also important. And actually many people are in both. Some people are in the university and they're in prison. So understanding that these lines that get created that divide people and divide people's participation in terms of what knowledge they have, those lines are really not real. And we have to make sure that they don't stay real. And with that, I'm passing it on to my sister, Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Daniel Jones. And I come from this work as an academic and a formerly incarcerated person, just like what Kathy was talking about, and a person who has lived through the violence and trauma of my life prior to incarceration. And so the stakes of what the DVSJA represents is huge. It represents some vindication, some redemption for the women who were traumatized as a result of whatever brought them to incarceration, right? And it has the power to really truly change lives. And the fact that it's happening in New York, I feel very blessed to be a part of DVSJ, because I can sit inside of this group and share and bring my expertise that I can then take to my state. And so currently I'm in the state of Indiana, and that's where I'm from. And so the DVSJ for me is about what it means to carry this work beyond state lines and to connect this work and efforts to other parts of the country, to honor the history and commitments and use them to spark and support organizing efforts and research justice collectives across the country. Indiana hopefully being the second site for this amazing work. And with that, I'll pass it back to Maria.
Okay, well, so that was just a tease, probably too long, but we can talk more in the breakouts. Thank you.
And we're gonna, with love and tears and the joy of what this project has meant, we're gonna pass it on to Steve. Thank you all.
I gotta say that's a very, very tough act to follow. Beautiful in it just encapsulates so much of what we're all trying to do. So I want to thank everyone who's been part of that project and continues to be. So I'm Steve McKay. I'm an associate professor of sociology. And thanks everyone for coming and for watching the videos. And I wanted to introduce my community partners who I've been working with for about the last 6 or 7 years. Maria Elena and Paulina, do you want to just introduce yourselves for a minute?
Hi, buenos dias, good morning, afternoon. My name is Paulina Moreno. I'm one of the project directors here at Community Action Board, overseeing our Thriving Immigrants work and most recently our 2020 census efforts.
Hi, good morning, buenos dias, buenas tardes. I'm Maria Elena de la Garza. I'm the executive director to the Community Action Board of Santa Cruz County, born and raised in Watsonville, California, which is the southern tip of the county.
Fantastic. So we do want to, what was great is we, did the video, we had some great responses. And just a little bit of background that we've been working with each other over the last 6 or 7 years. We're now on our third large scale project that we call SISR, Community Initiated Student Engaged Research. And our first project, which focused on low wage work, was called Working for Dignity, with the really trying to understand better what is it like to be a low wage worker, particularly in a very expensive place like California. And that led to our second big project, which was called No Place Like Home, which the focus was on affordable housing, since that was the key issue that low wage workers came to us with. And so that was another large scale project. Both of those ended up being very large scale survey projects in which we had undergraduates, about 250 undergraduates help participate in those projects. And we were able to collect very large data sets for the No Place Like Home and the affordable housing. We were able to collect about 2,000 surveys of local renters to influence sort of the discussion around affordable housing in Santa Cruz. And our third and the current project is called We Belong. And here the focus is to, from both of those two other projects, the specific kind of challenges that immigrant families, and particularly immigrant families with mixed legal status, had in terms of a sense of political participation, but more deeply a sense of belonging. And so the project is to kind of better understand what's the experience of mixed status families like, particularly in this context. Now, something that has come up and in our broader relations is with the emergence of the pandemic and in the movements for racial justice, is how do university partnerships pivot and respond, right? And how are we as university partners able to respond to the needs of the community and our community partners? So this is something we talked about a little bit in the video, but I wanted to pose a couple questions that were posed in the responses to Paulina and Maria Elena to see if they can share with us their insights. And so I want to read a couple of the questions. And the first comes from Germany, I'll read it out. I live in a country, Germany, where the university community partnerships barely exist. Usually universities partners with industry. My dream is to bridge this gap, at least at the level of Faculty of Public Health, where I'm employed. Especially when it comes to working with migrant and minority communities. And so here's the question for you, Maria Elena and Paulina. This person asks, what advice do you have for someone trying to set up such an initiative? What would you wish you have done differently starting your partnership with the university?
Thank you. And I want to thank the person in Germany for posing that question. It's a really good question. And Paulina and I were kind of brainstorming this question yesterday or a little bit earlier today, and thinking about what helped us set the foundation with Steve and UCSC to launch our work together or to launch our relationship. And Paulina framed it in a really interesting way. She said, it's a courtship. It's a courtship. The university has to court us, and we have to court the university. And I'll let her talk a little bit more about that, and then I'll jump in about some of the foundational relationships that I think led to our success in working together.
Thank you, Maria Elena. Yeah, and just to expand a little bit about what we were brainstorming and just talking about was just an investment from the university, a committed investment to our work, and not just a one-time effort, but a continuous effort. We're very, we have a board that is representative of different sectors of the community. And one of our UCSC professors actually sits in our board, which has been a tremendous just ability to be able to connect. Steve, in many instances, I remember being part of our organizational efforts even before connecting with us on these very different and distinct projects. And just throughout the projects that we work collectively on, having a presence in very different sectors. So for example, with our Thriving Immigrants Initiative, we really have invested in bringing together a cross-sector collective of partners and community organizers and grassroots organizers to really, for lack of a better word, reimagine and think about what
what does it look like to do better and be better for our community here in Santa Cruz County? And, you know, through that effort, we launched a couple of strategic planning sessions, retreats, and Steve was there, you know, collectively participating and helping us frame our work. And so for me, you know, when I think about the alignment, it's an alignment about values, right? And so, you know, what speaks to folks in terms of their values, you know, we're grounded on values of equity and justice and dignity and inclusiveness. And so for that, you know, when I think about how to even begin to explore those relationships is connecting with organizations that you have shared values with and that speak to your work. And so, you know, and it's also an ability to just, you know, sit in different spaces. When the Blum Center launched, you know, we were invited as community partners, a special project that launched at UCSC to begin to imagine what do community partners, nonprofit organizations need from the university. And, you know, that was our first time sitting in a space up at campus, exploring and talking what type of projects we'd be interested in. This was probably 6 years ago. And one of the ones that I had talked to Steve about is like, could we do a project on mixed status families in Santa Cruz County? And so, you know, the fact that it is now materializing is super exciting, and we're excited to be part of this effort.
If I can just add, all the intersections that the university has with our agency, because I think that will show what the relationship is based on, right? So as Paulina mentioned, one of our board members is a faculty at the university, who introduced us to the Blum Center and to that team. Steve sits on our Day Worker Center Advisory Committee. He shows up for the Day Worker Center of Santa Cruz County. When we're fighting for funds, he shows up. When we need design ideas or support with data, he shows up. You know, Heather, the director of the Blum Center, shows up at community conversations, at networking meetings with us. She helped us with our community action plan process, where we interviewed folks and helped to help us build our snapshot on poverty. And so those intersections, right? Those intersections build the foundation of our relationship that has built trust over time. So Steve asked me to show up every summer to talk over, you know, talk with the summer program. I show up, right? I'm there. Because I know that if there's a threat to funding or I need a letter of recommendation, Steve shows up for CAP. That is the beauty and the power of our relationship.
So that's wonderful, and we feel the same. And I just want to share one way, because we had a couple questions, and I know we might be wrapping up. But one is sort of, you know, how do we expand this? And I just want to read one more thing. It says, you know, it's not enough for UCSC or universities in general to be for the community. Perhaps it also needs to be of the community. So one last question is sort of, what does it mean? And this is what someone said was, you know, what does it mean for the university to be of the community?
That is a fantastic question. Whoever asked it, thank you for that. And we've had long discussions, even in the creation of the video and our looking at the questions, you know, to be of the community, to be connected to the community, to be valued from in the community, and to value the community. You know, that's an interactive and engaging relationship. It is to be an action and an alignment of goals and missions and values. To be of the community, I'm going to say, there has to be a commitment from that institution to be connected to the community in different layers. The institution needs to reflect the community, starting and as part of the many layers with the Board of Trustees. Who is on your governing board? What do they look like? Do they reflect the community? Are they connected to the voices of the community that nonprofits and community-based organizations serve and that we're intimately connected with and have an understanding of? Is your university, is your entity, do you place a value on that kind of representation and engagement from every level of your university, including your board of trustees, including your faculty, right? What are the protocols and processes in place that support faculty of color, that support students of color, and that support community-based organizations that are led by people of color? How are we intentional in that work? How is your institution intentional in guiding that work? And so I think that's really important. You can't be of the community if you're not connected to the community. You can't be of the community if you're not recruiting students from the community. You can't be of the community if your faculty doesn't reflect and isn't feel engaged and a part of the community. It's a disconnect. And so that's a challenge for us, right? That's a challenge. What do you want to add? And let me say, we have a slug with us. Paulina is a slug, right? And so on our part, on the institution, on the community-based organization, is how do we make sure that brilliance, like students like Paulina, stay close to us?
Yeah, Paulina, any last additions?
No.
So I just want to say, again, it's just a humbling and powerful thing to be in community with partners. And it is about showing up. So we always say one thing we start with and why we call it community initiated is that we asked our partners in that initial meeting with the Blum Center is two things to drive our research agenda. Is the first question is, what do you know but can't prove? And the second question is, what do you know or what do you need to know to do your work better? And if we start from there, our agenda is driven by their agenda, by our agenda. For me, that's what we mean by all in, right? Is that we are sharing and we come together and it's a dialogue. It is a courting because it's about like, do those match? Do those things as an academic match with the community? And so it is this back and forth, but I think it's starting in that kind of humble way. So I just want to really thank Maria Elena and Paulina this morning for continuing that kind of wisdom and the strength of our partnership based on this kind of mutual respect. So thanks.
And we thank you, Steve, and the university for the partnership and the continued dance of courtship.
Yes, that's right. Okay. Okay. Well, thanks. And I think with that, we're going to turn it to Tim and his group.
Thank you so much, Steve. Revolutionizing honors, cultivating talent, and engaging communities. We hope that the time that you spent looking at the video for our HLLC, our Honors Living Learning Community, left you curious about that mantra. It is very important to us. Revolutionizing honors, reimagining what honors even is, cultivating talent. Stop this overlooking local talent. Engaging communities. Yes, indeed. How can we really operationalize the principles of publicly engaged scholarship by recognizing how essential reciprocity is, honoring different kinds of knowledges, community-based and indigenous knowledges. This is what the Honors Living Learning Community at Rutgers University Newark is all about. The video hopefully helped you to know that we are at our base two things. One, a merit scholarship. A merit scholarship. Certainly many of our students have high need, but they earned the scholarship. It is a scholarship for room and board because the philosophy is that if we can bring these young people together for 4 years or 2 years, not only to live together, facilitated by this merit scholarship, but also to learn together in what we call an intergenerational kind of format, we think something very powerful can happen. We think that we can push the boundaries of what we have imagined for higher education. You may think it's strange that I mentioned 4 and 2 years, but 2 years because a third of our honors living learning community scholars are transfers from community colleges, reimagining learning communities. In the video, you saw one of those transfer students, Tyreek Rolon, who is now a graduate and a master's student at Rutgers University, Newark. He has overcome the school to prison pipeline. And he actually is the TA for my course right now. You also heard the voice of another graduate, Stacy Tyndall, who is preparing for law school. She's going to be a judge. With me today are 2 of our honors living learning community scholars. One is a junior, Mohammed Farj, a remarkable young man who I've been working with very closely, and an incoming HLOC scholar who's actually from Newark, Ebony Bug. Mohammed is going to share more during this period because Ebony is actually going to close us out with a spoken word piece. But I wanted to take this opportunity to, in fact, Ebony is from Patterson, forgive me, a neighboring city, but greater New York proper. She corrected me in the chat, y'all. But I wanted to say, Mohammed, you've come into HLOC and you have been infected, I think, by this notion of what it means to reimagine an education that is not only a merit scholarship, but a curriculum. So you're navigating, like all HLOC scholars, the 18 credit curriculum. Tell me a little story or reflect, Mohammed, if you will, on the engaging communities dimension of the honors living learning community.
Thank you so much, Damon. And I think you took the breath out the room when you started there, which was very important for us to do. And
he knows I need a lot of encouragement, y'all.
And I'm glad that you highlighted the engaging communities aspect of the mantra. And this is something, as you know, working closely with me, that I believe is the key of the mantra, right? It's something that I think we take far beyond our time in higher education. And the skills and tools that are developed in this facet are something I consider to be timeless, which is something I believe, like I said before, could go over the time in higher education. And to truly understand this, like anything else in life, you have to do the work. And with that, I needed to spend time actually engaging my community, my new community. You mentioned that I am not from Newark. I'm from a neighboring city in Jersey City. So in this new community, I found myself in Newark. I realized that I had to start from scratch. I had to really engage my community. And as people who went previously to us mentioned, be of the city. And in my very first semester in the HLC program at Rutgers Newark, I had an amazing opportunity to work with the president of the New Jersey Institute of Social Justice, President Counselor Haygood. And Counselor Haygood visited one of us, visited the HLC during one of our core curriculum classes, seeking assistance in a rally that he was hosting in Newark. Now, mind you, I was very ignorant as to what the rally was about, and I was very curious as to what Counselor Haygood would say. If you met Counselor Haygood, you know when he talks, you listen. And when President Counselor Haygood started speaking, he called the rally for the 94%. Now, let me just paint a little color and give you a picture as to why that rally was called the rally for the 94%. The name in the initiative stems from the fact that 94% of Black voters in New Jersey lended their vote to Governor Murphy in the past gubernatorial election. And up until that point, racial and systematic injustice were at record levels here in New Jersey, in the state, with a Black child being 30 times more likely to be incarcerated than the white peer, the white family's net worth being $270,000 to the Black family's net worth of $5,900. You get curious and you want to ask why. And so immediately I pounced on the idea. It was the best opportunity for me to not only engage my community, as we had mentioned before, but to do so with one of the best community leaders in the state. I was a student of the game and I wanted to be right there in the front lines with him. And the one thing I will remember on top of the actual rally itself, and I will add, the rally was very successful. Governor Phil Murphy actually signed an executive order to address our concerns and needs right after the rally. But the one thing I'll remember on top of the rally itself was physically going into the communities and speaking to people. I remember I took an Uber from Jersey City all the way to Rutgers, Newark, and it was a rainy day, and I was set to meet Councilor Haygood in one of the communities that he grew up in and he was familiar with. And from there, I saw how Councilor Haygood spoke to the constituents. I saw how he spoke to people you can tell needed their voices heard. You could tell these people never had their concerns addressed and their issues addressed as well. And this was surprising to me, given the fact that I mentioned before that 94% of the Black voters lended their vote to Governor Murphy. And simply by observing Councilor Haygood's tendencies and connecting with people, as an outsider at that point, I began to understand what engaging truly meant. And we went on to have a fantastic rally in the middle of, I think if you remember, it was in the middle of a hurricane and people still came out and showed out. Now I take these lessons learned from Councilor Haygood and by extension the HLC, because I want to emphasize I would have never met a community leader in Councilor Haygood if it wasn't for the HLC putting me in that position. And I apply that in every aspect I can in my life, whether it be with my family, and I have 3 brothers, so you know how that could get if you have siblings, or professionally. For example, this past summer, I had an amazing opportunity to intern for the Royal Bank of Canada as a global market sales and trading intern. And something I want you to know about this position is one particular thing is that one way and a key aspect and to be successful in that position rests on your ability to communicate with people, both internally at the firm and externally, whether you're dealing with clients and so on and so forth. And though it may seem like a completely different responsibility, you know, going to communities and speaking to individuals from Newark and engaging with them and seeing what they hold dearly versus speaking to people at a bank, you know, speaking to people who are at Wall Street and understanding what they hold important. The responsibility, engaging sentiment is a core principle in both of them alike, and that remains intact. At the end of the day, people want to be heard. They want to be listened to. They want to be genuinely cared about. And it's our job to do that. And that's one lesson I said in the very beginning of before I got on that can truly be taken far beyond higher education. With that being said, it is higher education's responsibility. And not only ensuring that's present in students, but instilling it in students where it becomes secondhand nature.
Can y'all imagine that young brother at the Royal Bank of Canada with his social consciousness rolling hard in that space? It's exciting. I'm not making this up. I got a message from my chancellor during this hour. Says, can you send me some quick bullets on how the HLLC scholars are keeping engaged in Newark communities? And I raised that because to one of the questions in the Google Doc, you know, how do you do this? It's important to have the kind of leadership that facilitates a consciousness. Nancy Cantor did not create the consciousness at Rutgers Newark, but she came into a space where there were faculty already engaged with community, valuing students, and this vision was birthed. I wish that I had more time to share with you about this. I hope we can talk about it more in the breakout rooms. I do want to hear Ebony's voice and maybe have her just say a quick word about, as a brand new HLLC scholar in the 2020 cohort, what attracted her to the HLLC before I say one closing comment and transition to Dr. Bray. Ebony.
Hi, thank you for having me. Excuse my red slurpy tongue. But what made me want to be a part of the Honors Living and Learning community? HLLC allowed me to fully embrace and activate the social change agent within myself, and also to be surrounded with other students who want to do the same, who have a passion and drive to do the same. And to be completely honest, especially during this pandemic, it has definitely became a place that I now recognize and correlate as home. So I'm thankful for Dean Eatman and HLLC for accepting me and helping to cultivate me to be a a change agent within America today. So thank you guys for having me.
And we didn't do Ebony any favor, and we didn't do Muhammad any favor. In fact, they're doing us a favor. And so you will recall in the video that I was pointing at an open space that was a building to come. That building, actually, we are in receipt of the certificate of occupancy now, but it's only me and the security guard in there, right? Because we're in the challenge of this COVID environment. So one of the things that makes me stay up at night is, how do we make HLLC relevant for an incoming scholar like Ebony, so that she really understands the possibilities of the community and the commitment to the community. I'm going to pass this off now to Dr. Bray. And in doing so, I want to let you know that it is my honor to have followed people like Michelle Fine and Mark Warren and so many others who were the harbingers for the Urban Research-Based Action Network as co-chairs. I now serve as co-chair with Anna, who you heard from, and Paige Bray, who will follow me now. And we're excited about the opportunity to use this coalition of Urban to activate this publicly engaged scholarship in crazy ways, to break open into new realms, the possibilities, the innovation, the imagination of the university, so that we can rise to the place that we need to be. On that note, I'm going to ask if Dr. Bray would take us forward into the next section, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's really a pleasure to be here with everyone and colleagues across all of this All-In. I'm Dr. Paige Bray. I am professor of early childhood at the University of Hartford, and my focus is around the Center of Montessori Studies.
So a couple of issues emerged in both our reactions to the 4 sessions and to our conversation. One is that it seemed like everybody was very moved by these presentations, and what a kind of beautiful intellectual, political, and ethical spa gets created when we're all together speaking a set of values and ethics that seems to be kind of a recessive gene in the academy, where we strive to be organizing our teaching and our learning and our research on principles of dignity. I love the language of showing up for each other, the commitments of trust, the question of what does it mean for the university to be of the community, not just in or on or exploitive of. And all of these projects so kind of knitted in love, trust, and long-term relationships. I mean, I think I met Muhammad 4 years ago when he was much younger. And there's just a way in which I think the lives we live together, listening to Steve and his colleagues and Anna and the young people that she's working with, these are relationships that are sustained over time. And I think particularly during COVID, it feels really powerful to have research and academic, but really ethical and activist relationships that sustain over time. The questions about the obligation of the university are, feel like treacherous ground. One is, how do we make sure that the university doesn't just exploit public scholarship as a branding technique, but not commit resources and alter their own practices in a way that honor the commitments that I think we share. The second is the extent to which this work falls disproportionately on faculty of color, junior scholars of color, community partners, and graduate or undergraduate students of color, while maybe white students, faculty are like off doing their social mobility thing and publishing and making the academic magic that is profoundly and painfully privileged over this work. And so how do we think through not reproducing white supremacy by encouraging this work? A third issue that emerged, which was related, is that a lot of junior scholars are apparently anxious about doing this kind of work. It takes too much time, you lose capital, where do you get published? Your older evaluating faculty don't always have respect for this work. So those were some of the treacherous questions. I think the radical imagination questions were in a moment of Black Lives Matter, immigrant justice, queer justice, calls for economic justice. Are there obligations for the university to engage conversations not being had, as in Santa Cruz, around gentrification, immigrants' rights, day laborers, as at CUNY and Columbia and Brooklyn Law around who's still stuck in the prisons? You know, we turned our project into a rapid response when COVID hit, and then just sent a whole slew of names to Governor Cuomo about getting women, older women, sick women, women who would be, who could apply for DVSJA petitions, and said, get them out of prison, there's COVID. And so how do we think about our accountability? Our governor, by the way, has not been responsive, as much as he likes to see himself as the daddy of COVID for the nation around incarceration. He has not been very responsive. But to what extent can university be places with our colonial white supremacist histories, with the kind of neoliberal, capitalist, Zionist, anti-immigrant sentiments that are now pouring through the membranes? To what extent can we create counter spaces within the academy, particularly public universities, for these for this kind of work? Another issue that emerged is, to what extent can universities be places for repair, for decolonizing? I guess in California, there's a call for inviting universities to think through repair with indigenous groups. And just one other question that emerged is, and Anthony's now the face I'm seeing, is to what extent might universities be a place to reimagine, like the training of police? Do we reimagine the training of police, or do we say we're not doing that work, but we're going to reimagine another form of labor, another opportunity for young people where they can serve communities for accountability, safety, and dignity in anti-racist ways? So it feels like the university's at a very precarious stance around, do we take an abolitionist stance and just talk about building new possibilities for what kind of jobs are available, even as I know the CIA and the FBI are recruiting at CUNY. I don't know if they're in your universities as well. So it's a big question about the university's relationship to be of the community, but also internal university politics, so that public facing work doesn't just get simply turned into a branding for the university. And I think at this moment, while those questions will occupy urban and our conversations going forward, we wanted to create a word cloud. Do I have this right? And have everybody contribute. Chris, help me here. You're my banister. We wanted you to convey to us, what issues are you moving forward with as you leave our 2 hours together? What issues do you intend to address in your work going forward, knowing that you now have a network of comrades in solidarity in the academy for justice, hoping to be of the community, whether that's a geographic community, a class community, or to be in community with folks who are behind bars or in detention camps or transnational. And so we're going to ask you just to add to this. Go on that Slido thing and do your thing.
And you can enter as many terms as you want or issues as you want. And you can, if you add something that's already there, it'll become larger. So then we know there's multiple people who want to address that issue.
And maybe again, we can take this and send it out to folks. And if there are subcommittees, we can start working. In New York City, we're working on this police-free schools, moving them out, taking the money. We have 5,000 cops in the schools who work for the NYPD. I love how this is getting populated. This is a great idea. Thank you, Tim. Resisting branding, healing justice, building trust. True collaboration is very thick. I think that's because a lot of people like it. Love, authenticity, mutual aid, funding, activist scholarship, bipartisan advocacy, embodied knowledge. Incarcerated people, I lost them. I lost the incarcerated. Armed love, revolutionary hope, lack of resources, mental health, truth, true engagement with communities, reimagining purpose, self-determination, white supremacy, immigrant justice, ethics first. You know, one of our colleagues, Monique Guichard, has been working with community in the Bronx where they have a community ethics board, and all of the research projects that come through Einstein Hospital go to the community ethics board, and community members review these grant proposals. Racial economic justice, elevate the narratives, people of color, respect, intergenerational trauma, ecosystems of participation, stories. I think I'm going to have to turn over, but I think I want to leave you with the importance that has been so central to the 4 projects of really centering the perspectives of those who have been most impacted by the toxic systems of state violence, structural violence, and in our case, we would add intimate violence, centering those perspectives. Our research, our praxis would not be possible, would be thin, superficial, and only reproductive and extractive if it wasn't centered and grounded by the perspectives of those most impacted. So I will let you take it away. Who am I passing this on to?
I think we're passing it to Steve next to close us out.
Steve, close us out. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. That was great, and it really is inspiring. Again, one of the things that came out. So I'm supposed to bring us home, and I will be introducing Ebony in a minute to share. But one of the things I really love about Urban is that love is the center of that, of what we're doing. And in my breakout sessions, I think it was Connie had said in watching the video that we did, that she could just feel the energy from and passion that Maria Elena, my community partner, has. And I had to say that I feed off that energy. And it's amazing that through, through this wall, I'm sitting in my house, in my spare room, but I could feel that love and that energy, right, from you all. And I think that is what sustains us. And what Michelle said, and what I also came out is, it's because we can resist that kind of branding and fake language about partnership and really get down to the level of respect and love and long-term commitment that the job really takes. And it's not easy work. It's not like quick work. It takes a real commitment, but there is a payoff. We hope it's a payoff for our communities, but also we need to sustain ourselves and our partners as much as we can. And that respect and that kind of putting our partners first, what is it they need to thrive? What can we provide of our humble resources and knowledge to make theirs better? And vice versa, right? I only get the energy back from having these kind of partnerships. And so this, just in this very last few minutes, I want to say thank you first to everyone who's stuck with us and have participated. We are really excited to bring this work to kind of a national and even international level because again, how inspiring and how different every community is, but learning from these different strategies that everyone has. So we do want to do an appreciation, and this will be another word cloud. So I think we're going to set it up again in Slido. To just share with everyone any words you have of thanks or appreciation from our time and this space together, just so that we can be mindful and think about, what are these kind of blessings that we want to carry us? Because we are in a pandemic. We are in this moment where of anxiety, and what is it going to take to keep us moving through? So if you can just share a word or two of what it's meant to be part of this kind of collection that we've been pulling together, and what are those maybe words of thanks or appreciation that helps sustain you in the struggles and days ahead, so people can. Again, inspiration, gratitude, being safe, emotional support. Again, I think it's really important to recognize in this moment of kind of anxiety that we all need that, and that connection is one of the most important things, and solidarity. And this is, what does it mean to be in solidarity? For me, it means recognizing our differences and our strengths, and that we're stronger together, right? That, as Maria Elena says, I'm there for you when you need it, and knowing I could call on people to be there for me, that level of it. Vulnerability, yes, we are vulnerable, and that's why we need that kind of levels of solidarity, and that we all are connected. And so we, in our breakout rooms and just seeing here today, in so many of the models, it's how often each of us has a foot in another kind of space. And I think what we realize is we learn to know what we don't know, and we learn to know what we gain by being in partnership. And so that kind of solidarity to me is inspirational. So just having this, time together, us being patient. I think that one thing that came out that's similar, that Cal in our breakout group said, I asked them, if there's anything that they'd like to share. And she thought, and this is really fundamental to everything, is that this, as Michelle said, that knowledge and expertise come from all sources, right? That there's all, and it's that we need to respond to communities where they're at and understand and respect that knowledge and expertise. And it's centering those voices that I think is really important. I see more, again, community courage that we're taking back, patience, tolerance. Big shout out to the HLLC scholars. Very inspirational. I think working with young people, seeing their level of engagement, for me, it's working with most students. One of the things I found in the pandemic is this important need to be connected to folks. And how do we continue to do our work? And one thing that people said that they are trying to figure out is, how do we maintain these relationships in a time when we can't always be physically together? And I just want to share quickly, this summer we were trying to do these interviews with mixed status families and trying to do it remotely. Well, it was only because, partly through CAB and then another community partner, that we connected with a youth group. And those youth that we connected my undergraduate students, and then they were able to connect to the community members. So even though it was remote, we were able to conduct 50 long-term interviews with communities, in part because we already had a connection to the community, right? And so this kind of research and these level of partnerships are possible, but we need to share kind of what strategies everyone's using to do that. There were a lot of great things also that people had to say at the end of, from their responses. I think, as someone says, keeping certain things, nothing about us without us, right? I mean, like remembering how important that is to center those voices. And I think one of the things that we want to take away is that we want to extend what we're building here through Urban, through All In, and make this a space. So again, we were disappointed we couldn't have this meeting in person, but in some ways, it's just meant that we've been able to develop what, instead of a one-off, kind of conference in April, last April, now we get to be a 2-year-long collaboration with all of you. And so we are hoping in 21, 22 to have an in-person conference here in Santa Cruz and bring everyone here. But until then, we can be thinking about how do we build these connections and learn from each other. So the idea was this first conference, this first webinar was a place to set an agenda, and that we could have quarterly meetings like this, where then we will, polling everyone here, thinking about what do we want to do together as we go forward. So we are hoping that to have maybe 2 or possibly more of these kind of webinar events where you all help us set the agenda and think about what we should be talking about. And that could all be, kind of building up to an in-person conference, hopefully in 2021. So we will continue to be in touch with you all. I hope that's okay. We would like to send information. One of the things I got were in my small groups is hearing about these wonderful collaborations that I would love to learn more about. So maybe we could have a space where we can share resources. Some folks asked about the scissor model, the community-initiated student engaged research. So we're happy to share that. So we're hoping that we can continue this conversation, build up a space where we can share information and models for doing what we're doing. Maybe even having other folks posting videos, as someone said, so we could see other examples. I mean, it was, we had 4, but why not have, 40 videos where we can do this? It also, we find, helps us when we have to engage our own institutions. So as Michelle was saying, how do we keep from being captured by this kind of branding? It's by being true to what our community partners are and using the leverage that some of us that have been able to build programs can lend to the others who are trying to do this kind of work. And that's the kind of network we're trying to build, right? This collaborative network where we can learn from each other. So we're hoping that this can be a space for that going forward. And so we'll be in touch, and we hope you'll be in touch with us so that we could kind of build some of these tools together. So I think, so those were the issues that I thought, I hope will sustain us over the time. I'm glad to see solidarity as the center of that map, because I truly think that is the move forward. And part of that solidarity is really connecting across not just locations, but across generations. And I think we're all often inspired by working with younger folks. And so it just gives me a chance to introduce again Ebony Bug, who's gonna close us out with some of her own poetry. Ebony, as you know, is at Rutgers, is a first-year student, as Tim said, in the honors living learning community. But she also is the founder of Created Unique, which is it helps facilitate access to mentoring, counseling, and leadership development and positive growth. She's also completing a book that will be released next year, a book of poetry entitled The Evolution of a Black Girl's Identity. And as she notes, she always lives by the motto, live, laugh, and love. So Ebony, please close us out.
Thank you. So like you guys say, my name is Ebony Bug, and this poem I'm doing for you today is called A Tribute to Our Heritage. The power of love gained from hardship and struggle, love that endured pain and suffering. We cry out for strength in this love, just like our ancestors did before. Strength to stand strong in the word of God and to change the injustices in a world that doesn't see any wrong. Beaten, bruised, battered, hated, rejected, ignored, constant reminders of our family tree. Fighting just for equality, not to beat the system or to gain any advances, but to receive a fair shot to a society which we are basically the foundation of. Brick by brick, we decide to push to earn every piece of what we have. a rich royalty gained due to my melanated skin that was given to me through the Father. Coretta Scott King, a queen of such power and strength. Her perseverance to spread her late husband of only 38 days message of reforming the economic status of poverty through love, education, and nonviolence. She had every reason to be mad, pissed off, depressed, and filled with so much sadness, but yet she kept going, keeping the mantra of her husband alive. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. I repeat, you have to keep moving. Harriet Tubman did not risk her life and the lives of others for you to stay stagnant. Sojourner Truth didn't escape with her daughter fighting for women's rights to be okay with us berating ourselves as anything less than royalty. Bessie Coleman wasn't the first Black woman to be a pilot of an aircraft for us to dream small and follow the beliefs of a society full of statistics. Madam C.J. Walker wasn't a successful entrepreneur for us to not invest and work on our craft and stay smart with our finances. Rosa Parks wasn't a civil rights activist who risked her life for equality within a segregated world for us not to want to fight change when it is needed. You see, this is not a tribute to our heritage, but this is a warning of encouragement to not let the spirit of those before us die to the spirit of the enemy that wants to live for today. Thank you.
That was amazing. I'll just say that was a beautiful way to close this out.
Yes, thank you so much, Ebony, for closing us out that way. And thank you all for joining us. And we look forward to being in conversation with you in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead.